Mm, In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful, welcome to another session of Finding God. We are on chapter 51. The light's really changing the shape of my head. Um, Before I start this, I'd like to give a brief interlude or an intro to why I look like this. I did a bit in my Monday video, but I'd also like to do that today. I had the great fortune of going for Umrah, which is um, not a fard, which is not a compulsory activity for Muslims, but if you're able to do it, it's one of the best things you can do um, as part of your religion. Um, in that activity, Muslims go to the Kaaba, which is our center in Mecca, and we perform an Umrah. For that, you need to get dressed in a certain white garb for your bottom and top half, and you're supposed to go past a certain boundary called the Miqat, which is assigned to certain mosques at around Mecca, and you're supposed to cross them and then come back in to the Kaaba, which is the center. Once there, you have to be clean and everything, obviously. Once there, you circle the Kaaba, which for the uninitiated is the black box, which millions and millions of Muslims worship uh, every day, and billions worship throughout their lifetime. Um, and I have to tell you, I was there and I was looking at it and I was praying in front of it and I was touching it, and it was the greatest moment of my life. And I've spoken in the British Parliament and at the Oxford Union, and I've given a TED talk, and I've met prime ministers, and God has been definitely been very kind to me and my family. But without a shadow of a doubt, this was the greatest moment of my life, and I just hope to be able to do it again and again. It was that incredible. So you circle the Kaaba 7 times, and that counts as an Umrah or a Tawaf, and then you're supposed to drink this holy water called Zamzam, which has a story related to Abraham and his second wife and his son Ishmael. And then you're supposed to perform the Sa'i, which means running from the mounts of Safa and Marwa from one end to the other 7 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and you finish at Marwa, and then you get your hair shaved off. If you're a man, and if you're a woman, you can get a small part chipped off, and that's your Umrah done. And while you're doing the run, you're emulating the run that Abraham's second wife, I'm forgetting her name, did, looking for water for her son. And then his struggle brought out this unending supply of water, which we call Zamzam. Um, so this was a very, very quick summary of the Umrah. The Hajj is a larger, bigger event. It happens once every lunar year, every of the Islamic calendar, on the 10th of the Zilhajj. Sorry, on the 9th of the Zilhajj. And it's a much larger event now because millions of people come. For example, this year we're supposed to have a turnout of 9 million people, which is a lot. Fit into that one space, and the encircling the Kaaba in the pilgrimage, and then they have certain other duties to perform. My parents have done it. I hope to do it at least once in my lifetime. But that explains this new hair. It's slowly growing back, but that's the explanation for it. And my mother, we also went to Medina, which is the Prophet's city, um, because right now in the Quran we're covering all the parts in Mecca, and once he migrated to Medina 20 odd years after, um, no, not 20 odd years, 15, 16 years after the revelation. Um, yeah, that's a whole different city, and he established a new city called Medina. It used to be called Yathrib before that, and we went there as well. And there's a mosque which used to be the Prophet's abode, and now it's a mosque named after him, named in his honor, called Masjid al-Nabawi. He's buried there as well. The most peaceful place I've been in my entire life, to be very honest. Whoever knows me knows that I never stop. I keep going and I'm always moving and I'm always doing things. But at that mosque, this whole typhoon that I carry with me, this whole cyclone, this hurricane that always surrounds me because I'm always doing things and I'm always electrically charged with energy, that all came to a standstill. I have to tell you, it was the calmest thing I've done in my entire life, and I would just sit there for hours and hours and read something similar to one of these. Now, my mum has been kind enough to procure one of the Qurans for me. She bought this, and you have similar Qurans in Medina, in the mosque, and in Mecca, in the mosque, in many mosques. You have hundreds and thousands of Qurans over there. This one's only in Arabic. Fortunately, I can read it and maybe even understand a bit of it. And she got this for me because I'll take this back to Canada, because a lot of critique that I hear from some Muslims is that the Quran is very thick. Look, this is a very tiny A7 size of a book, or A6, and it's very, very thick. But when you look at the actual book, with this size of writing, it's tiny. I have to say, it's 600 pages and it doesn't feel like it's 600 pages. It's very, very tiny. So I said to my mom, I need an original one that was prepared here, and I need to take it back. And she was very kind enough to get it for me. And I just want to show this is something I cherish tremendously with my whole life, and I'm glad I have it. Today, I'll be starting the first section of Surah Yunus, which is Jonah. Incidentally, it's named after Jonah, but Jonah only has 1 or 2 verses about him in this chapter. And that's a rhetorical device in the Quran. Sometimes it would name a chapter after something, and only 1 verse would be referring to that thing. The names don't really matter when it comes to the message now, does it? The message is what matters. So maybe that is why. I'll be dividing the chapter into 3 sections. I'll read from verse 1 to 38 today, and then 39 to around 70-ish next week, and then finish it off hopefully back in Canada, where we talk about Job and Noah and Moses. But today I'll be starting from the first one. Thank you, LinkedIn user. For some reason I can't see your name, but I'll come back to you and share your comment. No, I'll share it now actually. I wish I could see the name of the person. It just says LinkedIn user. This person says Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Ramadan Mubarak. Oh, also Ramadan Mubarak. The holy month of Ramadan started yesterday. Well, the first fast was yesterday, so Ramadan started the day before at night, because we follow the lunar calendar. And yes, Ramadan Mubarak to you too, and to all the Muslims, and to whoever chooses to fast with us during this time. You're absolutely right. Medina Munawwara has got peace that no city can compare itself to. Alhamdulillah, I have been lucky to both go for projects and ibadah. Ibadah means prayer and worship. Oh, Mirad Siddiqui, good friend of mine, Mirad Siddiqui. Lovely to see you. Thank you so much for writing. And you've been, so you know. This was my first time, and it was unreal. I have to tell you, it was unreal. Yesterday I was praying and with my brother, and after finishing prayer, I said to him, "Look, 10 days ago I was doing this exact prayer in front of the Kaaba, and I would I would prostrate, and then I'd sit back up and I'd look at it and I'd say, no, it can't be real. This can't be it. This I'm here. How does that even make sense?" It was unreal. I'm so grateful to God and my parents that I was able to do it. Anyway, Surah Yunus, Jonah. In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful. Alif Lam Ra, one of those letters that are miracles of the Quran that only God knows. These are the verses of the book Al-Hakim, and it says, Al-Hakim means showing lawful and unlawful things, explaining God's divine laws for mankind, leading them to eternal happiness by ordering them to follow the true Islamic monotheism, worshipping none but God alone. That will guide them to paradise and save them from hell. Is it a wonder for mankind that we have sent our revelation to a man from among them, which is Prophet Muhammad, saying, warn mankind of the coming torment in hell, and give good news to those who believe in the oneness of God and in his Prophet Muhammad, that they shall have with their Lord the rewards of their good deeds. But the disbelievers say this is indeed an evident sorcerer, Prophet Muhammad and the Quran. So it's around 621 AD. Muhammad, peace be upon him, became prophet 10 years ago. He was ordained as prophet by God through Gabriel. He became a prophet. And he's done this great journey, Isra and Miraj, going the night journey, going and conversing with God. He's done all of that. And at that time, people are saying he's a sorcerer. This book, this Quran is sorcery. It's not real. It's magic. We do criticize and resist everything that we don't understand or something that goes against what we believe or where we stand. At that time, science wasn't really the prevalent mode of thought, or even one of the modes of thought. So the criticism wouldn't have been, oh, this is a new science, or this is a new scientific method. It would have been, oh, this is a sorcery of some sort. Fair enough. That's your critique. Fair enough. Surely your Lord is God who created the heavens and the earth in 6 days and then rose over, istawa, it says, the throne, really in a manner that suits his majesty, disposing the affair of all things. Now, this is interesting. It rose over the throne. It's an explanation of how God has expressed his own majesty. So I don't know if the English language is good enough to explain it. Because we say something along the lines of apna jalwa dikhaya. Expressed his majesty almost does not do it justice. But unfortunately, in the English language, these are the words that we're stuck with. Sorry, is my sound all right? No intercessor can plead with him except after his leave. That is God, your Lord. So worship him alone. Then will you not remember? To him is the return of all of you. The promise of God is true. It is he who begins the creation and then will repeat it, that he may reward with justice those who believed in Islam and in God and did deeds of righteousness, but those who disbelieved will have a drink of boiling fluids and painful torment because they used to disbelieve. We know this. We have seen a thorough display or demonstration of what the afterlife looks like. We've seen it in other chapters of the Quran. This is reinforcing the idea. I'm still mentally focused on rose over the throne, the istawa, the expressing his majesty, exhibiting his majesty, magnificence, all those words tie into it, but they're not enough. I have to say, the English language, more often than not, comes wanting. It is he who made the sun a shining thing and the moon as a light, and measured out for its stages that you might know the number of years and the reckoning. Thank you, Lord. Imagine not having time or definitive time on your side. Imagine living in a world where nothing is bound by time. Imagine that. It sounds like hell. God did not create this, but in truth. He explains the verses in detail for people who have knowledge. Yep. Verily, in the alternation of the night and the day, and in all that God has created in the heavens and the earth, are verses. Now, verses, I'm using the term verses, but it also means evidences, proofs, lessons, sign, revelations. But I use verses because it ties all of that in for those people who keep their duty to God and fear him much. So the believers. Verily, those who hope not for their meeting with us, but are pleased and satisfied with the life of the present world, and those who are heedless of our verses, those their abode will be the fire because of what they used to earn. I'll come back to this maybe at a later date where contentment and happiness and its perspective in the Quran. Um, the Quran talks much more about following the right path, avoiding the path of the disbelievers or sinful activities. There's very little emphasis of this will make you happy. There's always the emphasis on this will make you a better Muslim or closer to heaven and so forth. Everything we're doing here is more about what it would lead to, and that kind of conflicts with hedonistic or short term or live in the moment perspectives, um, which are ever prevalent in the 21st century, but may have existed throughout human history. Um, so I wonder what the Quran says about that. Um, Verily, those who believe and do deeds of righteousness, their Lord will guide them through their faith. Under them will flow rivers in the gardens of delight or paradise. In the footnotes, it says, who believe in the oneness of God, along with the 6 articles of faith, which are to believe in God, His angels, His books, His messengers, day of resurrection, and Al Qadr, which is divine preordainments, Islamic monotheism. So that's what they say when we say we believe. The way of request therein will be Subhanaka Allahumma. Glory to you, O God, and salam, peace, safety from evil, will be their greetings therein, in paradise. And the close of their request will be Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. All praises and thanks are God's, the Lord of the Alameen. Alameen, as I've discussed before, means mankind, jinn, and all that exists in the Alam, in the realm. Sorry, the light is changing, so my skin tone is changing with the light. I suppose there's nothing I can do about it, but continue. And were God to hasten for mankind that the evil they invoke for themselves and for their children, while in a state of anger, as He hastens for them the good they invoke, then they would have been ruined. I'll come back to this. So we leave those who expect not their meeting with us in their trespasses, wandering blindly in distraction. So what this means is, the second part means those who don't expect to meet us. By meet us, it means those who fear us. Because if you are thinking that one day you're going to meet this God, and this God is issuing certain decrees for you, you would follow them. So you're a believer and you're on the path of righteousness. But those who don't expect to meet this God are disbelievers and are violating the laws of Islam and are committing sinful activities. For them, you will leave them in their trespasses, wandering blindly in distraction. That's what it says. But the part before that says, were God to hasten for mankind the evil they invoke for themselves and for the children, while in a state of anger, as He hastens for them the good, then they would have been ruined. So hastens the good means, there's a very common saying in Islam which says, if you take one step to God, God takes 10 towards you. It's very common. You take one step and God runs towards you, which is goodness. But if it's evil, it doesn't happen that way. While in a state of anger is what puzzles me, because in Islam, anger is considered an incredible human failing, a human flaw, anger itself. It's never encouraged to be angry. Anger is one of the things we have to control. Like for example, in this holy month, Ramadan, we have to fast, so we don't eat. We're controlling our hunger, and we have to pray. We're controlling our time and timely activities. We're also controlling our eyes. We're not looking at anything that would be sinful, and we're controlling our tongue. We're not saying anything that could harm others or harm ourselves. But when you go to the root of it, we're controlling our base desires, our greed, gluttony, envy, and we're controlling our anger because we don't express ourselves. Anger has a very negative connotation in Islam. It's never encouraged. Well, it may be encouraged in certain aspects, but as a human being, anger is told to be stayed away from. And when harm touches man, he invokes us, lying on his side or sitting or standing. But when we have removed his harm from him, he passes on as if he had never invoked us for a harm that touched him. Thus it is made fair seeming to the Musrifun that which they used to do. Musrifun means those who believed, those who belied God and his prophets and transgressed God's limits by committing all kinds of crimes and sins. Ain't that the truth? When you are in trouble, God is the center. Oh God, save me from this pain. Oh God, save me from this and that. When God does save you from that pain, all is forgotten. Everything is great. Everything is fine. No need for God anymore. I'm completely fine. Oh, the light is really changing the color of my face. Is there something I can do? No. Maybe I can do that. No, that still doesn't help. No, I'll just continue as it is. And indeed, we destroyed generations before you when they did wrong. True. While the messengers came to them with clear proofs, but they were not such as to believe. Yes, if we know anything from flat earthers, from people who deny the COVID vaccine, from people who argue about climate change, even evidence and majority sometimes is not enough to convince people. I'm not taking a side. I'm not saying climate change is right, and I'm not saying the COVID regulations were wrong. I certainly am saying that the earth is round and it's not flat. I certainly am saying that. But even evidence and a majority is not enough to convince some people. Thus do we requite the people who are mujrimun, which means disbelievers, polytheists, sinners, and criminals. Then we made you successors after them, generations after generations, in the land that we might see how you would work. And when God says we might see how you would work, it is not something of a surprise to God. God isn't conducting an experiment. God isn't saying, oh, well, let's put Muhammad with the people of Mecca and let's see what happens. I don't know what would happen. It's not an experiment. God is beyond time, so God knows what happens. But this is the language we understand 1400 years ago. Even today, this is the language we understand. It's more for us to see how we would work. It's not for God to see. Okay, let's see God finds out. He didn't know before. What then? Will he say, well, the Muslims have performed well. I'll give them a cake. I'll give them another mountain. No, it's not that. It's for us to see. It's not for God to see, but it's expressed in that manner so we understand. And when our clear verses are recited unto them, those who hope not for their meeting with us say, bring us a Quran other than this, or change it. What? Why would you bring a Quran other than this? Other than this beautiful book? Why would you bring a Quran other than this? Say, O Muhammad, it is not for me to change it on my own accord. I only follow that which is revealed unto me. Verily, I fear the torment of the great day, i.e., the day of resurrection, if I were to disobey my Lord. One criticism at the time, and a criticism that holds true even today, because I've spoken to a lot of atheists and critics of Islam, that Muhammad, peace be upon him, wrote the book himself. I'm not going to take a deep dive into this, but the logic, the syllogism falls apart. How does one know all these things, given that Muhammad, peace be upon him, was from a good family, but there wasn't a lot of written history at the time, that he read the Bible and he read the Talmud and he read everything and he knew, oh, Moses was this and I will refer to Moses when I create this book. And when did he have the time? He was busy working. He was in front of everybody's eyes. At 25, he was married. When did he concoct this book? And even if that were correct, when people bring this criticism to me that either he was schizophrenic or epileptic and he concocted this book, and I say, okay, I can't disprove you. You can't prove it, but I can't disprove it. Let's put that to the side. Why are 2 billion people believing in what he said? Why are 2 billion people believing in the book that he spread across the world? Why are 2 billion people? 2 billion people are idiots and crazy and are on the wrong path. Really? That's your argument. Why is there so much overlap between this book and books of the past? The Bible and the Gospel and the Torah, the Old and the New Testament. Why? How does it make sense? Convince me. Convince me that he concocted this and I would believe you. But instead, I find people doing a lot of whataboutism rather than put forward arguments and evidence that would convince me. I'm open to being convinced. I'm a rationalist at the end of the day. If you come and prove to me that this book is faulty or mistaken, and you can convince me properly, I'd change. I'm not a hypocrite. I'm not a bigot. If you can prove to me that this book doesn't make sense and it's wrong, you've convinced me. But you can't. I've had this conversation with hundreds of people. You can't. That's why. Because the argument you put forth to me, I will put forth arguments to you, which find the source in this book. And then I might end up convincing you, which I've done, surprisingly, with a couple of people. Convincing is not my modus operandi. I'm not interested in convincing people. I'm just studying. But when a back and forth happens, logic invariably falls on my side. Say, O Muhammad, if God had so willed, I should not have recited it to you, nor would he have made it known to you. Verily, I have stayed amongst you a lifetime before this. Have you then no sense? So who does more wrong than he who forges? So who does more wrong than he who forges a lie against God or denies his verses? Surely the mujrimun, the criminals, the sinners, the disbelievers, will never be successful. And they worship besides God things that harm them not, nor profit them. And they say, these are our intercessors with God. Say, do you inform God of that, which he knows not in the heavens and on the earth? Glorified and exalted is he above all that which they associate as partners with him. This idea has been repeated. See, there's a back and forth happening in this chapter. It's so interesting. It's a dialogue. Well, when they say this to them. And when they say this to them. There's a lovely back and forth happening. Mankind were but one community on one religion, which we believe is Islamic monotheism. Then they differed later, and had not it been for a word that went forth before from your Lord, it would have been settled between them regarding what they differed. The footnote says, narrated by Abu Huraira, the Prophet said, every child is born on al-fitra, which means true faith of Islam, to worship none but God alone, but his parents convert him to Judaism or Christianity or Magianism or Hinduism and so forth. As an animal gives birth to a perfect baby animal, do you find it mutilated? This is from Sahih al-Bukhari 21385. Interesting. This is belief in Islam. I grant you that other religions don't share this belief, but this is a belief in Islam that everybody is born with this faith, which we call Islam. On al-fitra, but the parents convert. And they say, how is it that not a sign is sent down on him from his Lord? Say, the unseen belongs to God alone, so wait you, verily I am with you among those who wait for God's judgment. The unseen, the batin. A lot of interesting theories regarding dark matter and the unseen have been coming across, because we have just arrived at dark matter in the last 50 odd years, or maybe slightly later or sooner, but not 1400 years ago. Now we're understanding dark matter and antimatter and what we see and what we can't see, what we measure and can't measure. And when we let mankind taste mercy after some adversity has afflicted them, behold, they take to plotting against our verses. Say, God is more swift in planning. Certainly our messengers, angels, record all of that which you plot. That's true. The angels do record all that we do, and the angels do record what plotting human beings are doing. He it is who enables you to travel through land and sea till when you are in the ships and they sail with them, the favorable wind, and they are glad therein. Then comes a stormy wind, and the waves come to them from all sides, and they think that they are encircled therein. Then they invoke God, making their faith pure for him alone, saying, "If you, God, deliver us from this, we shall truly be of the grateful." Isn't that a repeated story? It's simply saying that when they go for the sails and the winds come from all sides, it seems like, oh, we're gonna die. And when you're in that state of mind, obviously you invoke God and you say, you know what? I really don't know what I'm doing with my life. I can't even tell you what's going to happen 5 seconds later. I don't know if somebody's going to shoot me or a meteor is going to strike. I don't know. I submit and throw my hands up in the name of the Lord. So that certainly does happen. But when he delivers them, behold, they rebel, disobey God in the earth wrongfully. O mankind, your rebellion, disobedience to God, is only against your own selves, a brief enjoyment of this worldly life, then in the end, unto us is your return, and we shall inform you of that which you used to do. That day I'll be so afraid to read. This is a verse, a line from Dowd Wonsby's Nasheed called Read. But on the day the scrolls are laid, with every word and deed displayed, when we read our account, I know for one I'll be afraid. That day I'd be so afraid to read. It's a wonderful nasheed. The more I'm reading this book, the more I'm developing this fear inside me of, oh, that's going to happen one day. Because I believe in this book. I'm a Muslim. I believe this book. And I think about it and I say that day is going to come. Am I doing right? And I shudder when I hear the answer because I'm not. I'm clearly not far enough as I need to be. Verily, the likeness of this worldly life is as the water rain which we send down from the sky, so by it arises the intermingled produce of the earth, of which men and cattle eat, until when the earth is clad in its adornments and is beautified, and its people think that they have all the powers of disposal over it, our command reaches it by night or by day, and we make it like a clean mown harvest, as if it had not flourished yesterday. How could somebody who's lived in the desert his whole life, a trader, know all of this? Tell me. Oh, maybe he read some obscure scientific book. They weren't available then. This is Mecca in the 6th century. Imagine that. Sorry, 7th century. My apologies. The 7th century Mecca. They didn't have access to that knowledge at that time. It's interesting. It's amazing. Thus do we, by we, God means God, explain the verses in detail for the people who reflect. With age and time, I have tried to reflect a bit more. Thankfully, I'm grateful that I'm able to do so. God calls to the home of peace, Dar es Salaam, as it says. Dar es Salaam, yes, i.e. paradise, by accepting God's religion of Islam and by doing righteous good deeds, abstaining from polytheism and evil deeds, and guides whom he wills to the straight path. For those who have done good is the best reward, i.e. paradise, and even more, having the honor of glancing at the countenance of God, Jal Jalala. Yeah, so beholding God is in the neoliberal westernized world, we don't see the value of that. And in a lot of paintings in Christianity, God has been shown to be anthropomorphic. So the Sistine Chapel, one of my favorite paintings by Michelangelo, at the Sistine Chapel, I'm forgetting where, at the St. Peter's Basilica in Rome, has shown God to be having long white hair and having a serious face and reaching out and touching Adam. Those are only anthropomorphized images concocted out of, not concocted, but created out of a man's imagination. To witness God as God is is considered to be one of the most pleasurable and greatest experiences a human being can have. So, and in Islam, we cherish that. So I think having the honor of glancing at the countenance of God, neither darkness nor dust nor any humiliating disgrace shall cover their faces. They are the dwellers of paradise. They will abide therein forever. Please include us, God, me and my family, and all the wonderful Muslims and all the wonderful humans. I always try to pray for all the humans. I don't know if it goes through, but that is the prayer I have. And those who have earned evil deeds, the recompense of an evil deed is the like thereof. The humiliating disgrace will cover them their faces. No defender will be covered, will they have from God. Their faces will be covered as it were with pieces from the darkness of the night. They are the dwellers of the fire, they will abide therein forever. And the day whereon we shall gather them all together, then we shall say to those who did set partners in worship with us, stop at your place, you and your partners, whom you had worshipped in the worldly life. Then we shall separate them, and the God's so-called partners shall say, it was not us that you used to worship. So sufficient is God as a witness between us and you, that we indeed knew nothing of your worship of us. So again, it's a back and forth. It's a back and forth between the people who are praying and the people who aren't. Wesley Curry. Okay, thank you. From YouTube, I'll respond to you later, Wesley Curry. Thank you. There, every person will know exactly what he had earned before, and they will be brought back to God, their rightful Lord. And their invented false deities will vanish from them. Expected. Highly expected, isn't it? Thank you, Wesley. I will not be sharing your comments because these are incredibly problematic. That's why you're on YouTube, my friend. Okay. All right. Just somebody being a troll. Thank you. Thank you, Wesley. I'll be ignoring you from now on. Take care. Say, O Muhammad, who provides for you from the sky and the earth, or who owns hearing and sight, and who brings out the living from the dead, and brings out the dead from the living, and who disposes the affairs? They will say, God. Say, will you not then be afraid of God's punishment for setting up rivals in worship with God? Such is God, your Lord in truth. So after the truth, what else can there be save error? How then are you turned away? So it's an argumentation technique in making the other side seeing their point of view. Sorry, somebody else is sending a message now as well. Oh, okay. Oh, same fellow. Okay. Good for you, buddy. Good for you. Not engaging with this. Come on now. There's better things to do with your life than this. Go do something that's actually meaningful. If you're going to do these things that you've written, actually prepare something and go do it. Don't write on somebody's YouTube video who's sharing his faith. Go practice your own. I won't be sharing your comments in any case, and they'll be removed from the video. So do something that's better for you. Thus is the word of your Lord justified against those who rebel, disobey God, that they will not believe in the oneness of God and in Muhammad as the messenger of God. Say, is there of your so-called partners one that guides to the truth? Say, it is God who guides to the truth. Is then he who guides to the truth more worthy to be followed, or he who finds not guidance himself unless he is guided? Then what is the matter with you? How judge you? So it's the same argumentation, back and forth. Does your Lord guide you to the truth? No. Well, mine does. Why would you believe what you believe then? Mine is showing you the truth. When there is truth, there is only room for error beyond that. Why don't you think about this again? So that's the argumentation. And most of them follow nothing but conjecture. Certainly conjecture can be of no avail against the truth. Surely God is all aware of what they do. Just two more verses, then I'll stop. And this Quran, right, okay. And this Quran is not such as could ever be produced by other than God, Lord of the heavens and the earth, but it is a confirmation of the revelation which was before it, i.e., the Torah and the Gospel, and a full explanation of the book, the laws decreed for mankind, wherein there is no doubt from the Lord of the Alamin. In the footnote, it says, narrated by Abu Huraira, the Prophet said, there was no prophet among the prophets, but was given miracles because of which people had security or had belief. But what I have been given is the divine revelation which God has revealed to me. So I hope that my followers will be more than those of any other prophets on the day of resurrection. This is from Sahih Bukhari, 97274. So this is considered the miracle. This book, this wonderful book, is considered the miracle that Muhammad, peace be upon him, is given. Or do they say he, Muhammad, has forged it? Say, bring them a surah or a chapter like unto it, and call upon whomsoever you can besides God, if you are truthful. I'll stop here at verse 38. So this criticism is always put forth. As you can see, this person whose comments I'm reading from YouTube, it is just an example of this happening again. Do you realize how Johnny Hill is? Okay, good enough. What's your name? Wesley Curry. Thanks, Wesley. Good for you. Good for you. Keep writing what you're writing. It brings my video a lot more views when there are comments. So I thank you for that, for sharing the message of Islam forward with your comments, because the more you comment, the higher it goes into the YouTube algorithm and more people watch it. So I'm grateful for you to do that. But as I said, try to follow your own path of faith rather than coming on somebody else's channel and trying to argue against them. It won't help you. Your comments wouldn't change what I believe, and my comments wouldn't change what you believe. So why indulge in such a futile endeavor? And if you're a troll, then stop wasting my time. I will stop here because I'll continue next week from this chapter. But you see, today it was just a dialogue between Islam and its critics, Muhammad and its critics. And God was telling, well, say this when they say that, and say this when they say that. So that's a smart rhetorical device, because if somebody were listening to it, it's almost like listening to a dialogue. And we've seen the Srimad Bhagavad Gita, which is a central text in Hinduism, being a dialogue between, as far as I recall, Krishna and Arjun. It's a dialogue between them. And Hind Swaraj, wrote by Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, or Mahatma Gandhi as we know him, which is a dialogue between the editor and the reader. So the dialogue can really help people understand things much better. Okay, somebody's continuing to write. Thank you. I enjoy critics because they bring a lot of publicity to my video with their comments. So thank you so much. I will stop here. Have a wonderful Friday, a wonderful weekend, and